I'm going to avoid getting up on the soapbox because I think some of my colleagues have done a far better job than I could. But I do want to investigate some of these issues and some of the things that we can do about it more with some questions. And you on this panel, you've actually got several members of the two committees that probably have the most jurisdiction: Homeland Security and Judiciary. Judge Poe, Ms. Jackson Lee, and I serve on Judiciary. That gives us criminal jurisdiction and immigration jurisdiction. And so, Brian, I want to follow up on what Mr. Green was talking about with the T and U visas. Do we have adequate training for our personnel in briefing the victims on that? And do we need some? Is it something? The problem with these visas a legal problem, or is it a training and application problem?
First of all, just to stress that both the T and the U visa are administered by DHS, but by USCIS, not my agency, ICE. So
right, but you guys are the ones that are bringing them the people that are going to want to take advantage of these. From a federal level, y'all are probably, you and the FBI are probably the big boys in bringing them.
Yeah, we're probably the primary users of it. So there is a difference in the T and the U visa. First of all, the T visa, it's for long-term immigration relief. And the victim self-petitions. So it's the victim who comes forward, and it does not require a law enforcement certification, as opposed to the U visa, where a chief or the sheriff has to say, yes, this person is a victim. They're not saying they should get the visa, not they just say, yes, they are a victim from our standpoint. And the person has to comply with reasonable requests of law enforcement to help. If that's granted by USCIS, they get to stay here, work permit, and access to benefits and such forth. The U visa, again, is very similar. It's for a wider variety of crimes. The key with the T visa, as the law is written, is you must be a victim of severe form of trafficking under the definition of the Trafficking Victim Protection Act. Right. So that's the key. I mean,
so we can potentially broaden that definition, it might be helpful.
That certainly would be within your discretion.
All right, and so under the U visas, we've heard that part of the problem is you're asked to make that decision whether or not you want to testify. For instance, in this stash house that y'all got yesterday, they're probably asking that question today or tomorrow, and that hasn't given the folks time to get over the emotional scars, much less consult with an attorney or even their consulate officials.
Well, they do now. If we're talking about people from out of the country, they are through the process, the entire process. I think you mentioned training. All of our folks are trained, whether it's HSI or ERO. They are trained in this process. Throughout the detention facilities or where these people are held are signs and access to free phones where they can.
But you need some time to deal with it, I guess, the point I was trying to make. And I'm going to try to stay reasonably within my time, and I have several other questions I want to ask. And I'll go to Chief McClellan. I'll give the sheriff an opportunity to answer as well. While I was sitting up here, I went online to one of the more notorious online classified sites and went and looked at some of the adult service. I counted 4 listings in Corpus Christi in the last 24 hours, and or with today's date on them, and 99 in the Houston area. In finding these criminals and the victims, it doesn't look like you need to do much more than go online. I mean, why are we just sending people out? I mean, you've advertised for these services that certainly hint at being illegal. Why can't you just go out, either send an undercover officer out there, or go say, hey, let's look around and find the bedroom full of people being held there? Do you not have the resources to do that, or is there a legal impediment to doing that?
Well, yes, one is a resource issue, and in other cases it's an information issue. But certainly the social networking has made it much more challenging for law enforcement to interdict people that are being trafficked in the sex industry. No doubt about that. It is certainly more challenging. But also, culturally, as a society, it has been somewhat accepting, and the penalties for the individuals that exploit folks that are trafficking in the sex industry is relatively low, because people have looked at it as a victimless crime and they don't understand the violence associated with it. If these were people that were, on the news every day for murdering someone, yes, they would be getting felonies and they would be going to jail and prison for long periods of time.
Who's making the choice of those allocation of resources?
Well, it's a prioritization
Sure.
with
I
myself,
guess
the sheriff.
Obviously, you want to go after a murderer first, but you hear the tragedies associated with these women, and you wonder how many deaths you might be able to prevent. I don't mean to be criticizing your department. I'm trying to find out what we can do to help.
Well, certainly resources, the database, and a more defined law. I mean, you can hear the confusion here and the close link that you have with smuggling, trafficking, and people going across jurisdictional lines.
I'm already out of time, but if the chairman will indulge me long enough to get the sheriff's answer to that same question, I would appreciate it.
Thank you. The chief's correct. I mean, the social media websites in particular, and how those respective domains operate. One day the IP addresses are available. The next day they've been turned off. It's challenging. We do need better laws to help address this. But it also brings me back to the issue of how runaways and missing persons play into that particular side of the equation. And we have to do better at maybe making resources available for us to use facial recognition technology much more effective, because they're putting pictures up on the side. Maybe that could be a way to address this. But there's nothing more than I want to do everything I can to put these folks out of business. That's why I've increased specifically the number of female deputies in my vice operations. I made it a huge priority, looking to do more. I've given $300,000 of my asset forfeitures to the Harris County Juvenile Probation Department so they can start a juvenile human trafficking unit. It's a priority. It's important. We got to step up.
All right, thank you very much. And